Hey, historians. We'll be diving back into period 8 stuff tomorrow, but we're going to start each week now, gearing up for the AP exam slash your final, because it's going to be the same format, whether you're taking the final or the AP exam, it's going to be the same kind of display. So this is for everybody, not just people taking the AP exam. We'll spend much more time on this as well when we go into the month of May. But at the start of each week, we'll kind of pick out just one element of the DBQ to go over. And we're always going to be going back to this same DBQ here. So this is all posted in the same folder. So you might want to have this up with you. Today, our job's going to be contextualization. We're going to dive into really the first thing someone should be reading when they go into your DBQ. So we'll talk later on about how the modified DBQ looks different, how the rubrics adjusted differently. So don't think I'm just ignoring that. I'm just kind of going over the elements of it first, and we'll spend a lot more time on all of that later. So we're definitely not ignoring it. We're just kind of approaching the DNA of it first. So let's talk contextualization. We know the context is always what's leading up to our prompt. So for our context, we're actually not going to need to go through all these documents today. We're not going to need to own all of these. That's going to come later when we start to do our thesis and kind of coming to conclusions about these documents. For context, all we need to focus on is just simply the prompt we're being asked. It's right here. Contrast the goals, strategies, and support for two phases of the African American civil rights movement: the nonviolent integrationist phase, 1955 to 1968, and the Black Power phase, 1964 to 1975. All right, so a few things that leap to mind is I can tell what kind of questions is going to be contrast, right? So think of this question as a Venn diagram. On one side of our Venn diagram, we're going to have the nonviolent phase, kind of personified by like Martin Luther King, NAACP, SCLC, and the other side will have the Black Power phase, right, by people more like Malcolm X, the Black Panthers. So your job is going to be to kind of come to your conclusion. Do these different civil rights movements, are they more in common or are they more different? And as we know with complexity, we're going to demonstrate both those ideas. But we're not really there yet, right? Today we're just talking about contextualization. How can we create context that leads us up to when we see here the earliest date we see in the prompt is 1955. So our context is going to happen before 1955 and has to address concerns of the African American civil rights movement. So those are our goals, right? Let's set up what's going on with civil rights prior to 1955. Let's look at context again. So when we tried to explain context, we always used the Star Wars scroll, right? Like I'm going to play it right here. I don't even need the volume on. And you can see a great example of context simply provided by one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time. You're going to notice that it's only going to be about 3 sentences long. You're going to notice that it uses proper nouns, context, right? It's not vague, and it sets us up exactly where we need to be to know what's going on. A long time ago, right? And what is going to happen? I'm sitting in the movie theater. It's 1977. What is happening? George Lucas, tell me what I need to know so I can enjoy this movie. Okay, it's a period of civil war, rebel spaceships. That's a good noun. Striking from a hidden base. Oh, I wish they had told us what that hidden base was. But look, it's against the evil galactic empire. It's not just against some unnamed foe. One sentence down. Ooh, rebel spies managed to steal these secret plans to the Emperor's ultimate weapon, the Death Star. Notice that they don't just say they stole the Emperor's weapon, they stole the Death Star. Okay. This is only 2 sentences in. Third sentence. Pursued by the Emperor's sinister agents, Princess Leia. Ooh, another proper noun. We got someone's name here. She's the custodian of the stolen plans. to try and save her people and restore freedom to the galaxy. So that was three sentences roughly, filled with proper nouns: Galactic Empire, Death Star, Princess Leia. And notice that it's not going super far back. Like for this prompt, you shouldn't be bringing up slavery. Like, don't bring up the Emancipation Proclamations. The Star Wars scroll didn't bring up things that happened hundreds of years prior. It's really in that sweet spot, right? Like 20 years earlier. That's the kind of zone we're talking about. So if our prompt starts with 1955 and the topic is civil rights movement, we got to keep those two things in mind. Don't talk about World War II unless it's influencing African Americans. That's in the time frame. Make sure it's on topic. Don't bring up Emancipation Proclamation that has plenty to do with African Americans, but not in the time frame we need. A good example of actually a bad example, that I was going to say a good example of context lacking would be this. During the Columbian Exchange, European explorers discovered the rich resources and land of the New World. The Spanish began colonizing in the New World, but according to the Black legend, they devastated the native population with disease. Yeah, we're on the right track. I see some terms: Columbian Exchange. I see Black legend. This is pretty good. This is pretty good. But notice how you can also go a little further, right? European and American relations in the early 17th century. Ooh, there's a year. Were mostly defined by Spanish conquests, led by men such as Conquistador Cortez. So now we got proper nouns and terms, we got dates. The defeat of the Spanish naval armada opened the door for the English colonization to begin in North America. Overpopulation and the enclosure system in England create a large population in search of new beginnings in places such as Jamestown and Plymouth Rock. Three sentences. It's established my context, it's established my topic and time frame, and now my reader's ready to get into what I have to say about the topic. So for today, I'm going to make a discussion board. Feel free to post your context there. So it should be around three sentences, it should have proper nouns and terms. We're talking about the civil rights movement in this thesis, and our context has to lead up to 1955. So think about African American conditions roughly 20 or so years prior to 1955. Use your classmates' postings to help inspire you. Let me know how I can help. And we'll keep building off this DBQ at the start of each week. But for right now, this is going to be your focus. Happy hunting.